Hello, everyone. One of the comic books of 2019 I was expecting for quite some time and I really enjoyed was American Carnage by Brian Hill, Leonardo Fernandez, and Dean White. And oh boy, the comic book was amazing. What is American Carnage? American Carnage is a modern crime graphic novel that was published as individual issues from DC Vertigo in 2019 before the label went out. It was part of the Vertigo Lands. It was the one comic book in this lands that really clicked to me. The author of this graphic novel, Brian Hill, is also a screenwriter for Titans and Ash vs Evil Dead, and I've seen some of his episodes there in those two series. And he's got a very strong social media game. He is really great on Twitter, and he used to have a YouTube channel where he went and explained how he came up with American Carnage. I have seen this video back when it came out, and I was hooked by what he was saying, by his premise, his inspirations, and also what he was trying to do. And I didn't get the issues for American Carnage. I seldomly buy issues. I prefer graphic novels, and I was expecting the first 6 issues would be collected, but this is not what happened. We had nine issues collected, and it's the whole series in one graphic novel. It's that thick, so it's a decent read. It took me 2 afternoons to read that, because I was taking my time. Let's talk about the premise. We have a former FBI agent, Richard, and here's this guy over here. You see, he had an unfortunate moment. He saw an unarmed teenager, so he was taken out of the force. Now he's a private investigator. He's living a life of, he's just surviving, to be fair, not living, and his mentor comes in and asks him to investigate Morgan. Well, how can I say? He's a millionaire. He's a sort of life coach, a political speaker, and also part of the alt-right. And he wants him, Richard, to infiltrate Morgan's organization to find out proof that he is a white supremacist and he's behind a lot of violent actions, such as the murder of her partner, and he got injured trying to find the perpetrator, as you can see over here. And so he asks for Richard to infiltrate Morgan's organization. And there is a catch. Morgan is actually, you cannot see it in the artwork, but he is a black guy. He's black, but he's mixed race, so he passes as white. And that's one of my gripes with the premise. It's a bit far-fetched. You need a black guy who passes white to infiltrate a white supremacist organization. That's far-fetched. You can always have an undercover agent, and Richard used to be an undercover specialist. This plays a big part with his character later on. It's revealed later on, and there are some great character arcs. Everybody in this graphic novel has a great character arc. From this premise, you just expect a very black and white, pardon the pun, story. You have evil racist people and good FBI agents, and that's it. No, it's not. Actually, what Brian Hill does amazingly well, and he was explaining that in his video. I'll leave a link below so you can watch it and get as enthused as me, hopefully. I hope you'll get as enthused as me. We introduce Win Morgan talking to a church of people of color, because that's what you don't expect from an alt-right spokesperson. And that's where Richard tries to approach him, and he meets his daughter, who is also Jennifer Morgan, who is also a very important person to this organization, and soon I want so many pages because the whole point is you get and read this graphic novel yourselves, that have a dummy um, turning pages and telling you about what's happening. That's not the fun of comic books, really. Go and get it. Go to a library, go to your local comic shop, go to a bookstore, order it through Amazon, get it. It's very well recommended, despite my gripes I may have, and there are very few. I've already told you that the premise is a bit far-fetched, but as long as you say, oh, it's not important, it never comes up again, and actually it makes the plot a bit better later on. The way Richard arc is working. As soon as Richard infiltrates the organization, he realizes that there is a huge power struggle within it, and there are warring factions, and there is a lot of intrigue, and he finds himself to be a pawn in a chess game between the various factions within this comics. He's an interesting character because he's a man who has lost his identity and tries to reclaim it, and that motivates a lot of his actions, and also this creates a lot of conflict in his inner conflict. And there's also a lot of external plotting. Brian Hill was saying there will be a lot about the conflicts within the organization and his values, and I was expecting much more. I was expecting a corruption arc for Richard, and it is there, but he's not quite seduced to the white supremacist ideals. I would love to see that. That would be a story you don't see very often. What I also like about this comic book is the artwork. Leonardo Fernandez really reminds me of Edward Rissaw from 100 Bullets. That's why there is this callback to it in the title of this video. That's why I mentioned 100 Bullets, a comic book that is a very good classic by Edward Rissaw and Brian Azzarello. And it was a comic book that I have got in the first volume. I have fallen in love with it, 100 Bullets, but I think that as it went on, I just lost interest because the whole storyline was getting too convoluted, in my opinion. And what the creative team does this American Carnage really remind me of 100 Bullets, because it's about people being in an impossible situation and having to deal with conspiracies, with power struggles between the rich and the powerful, and all that. But it was a much more earthly storyline. And Edward Rissaw has this great style. I think. No, so Edward Rissaw. Sorry, it's very hard to not be reminded of it. It's Leandro Fernandez, and he's got this very cartoony style that is realistic, semi-realistic and semi-cartoony, and they're very expressive faces, very everything is exaggerated. So these everyday people, these everyday faces, this everyday situation look much more dynamic and interesting. That's great, and I think the coloring is also amazing. I mean, let me show you. You can see that the coloring is very vibrant, there's a lot of contrast, and every scene has a different color coding that makes it very easy to follow. I mean, look at that. We have Richard, he's waiting for Jennifer in the afternoon. She comes along at dusk. We have nightfall, and now it's night. And you don't need to explain that. The coloring and the way it's structured and the faces and the expressions just tell you the story. Time passes, and you know that time passes, and also you know where you are. That's great. That's comic books, really. That's what you're supposed to do in a comic book like that, where you'll have capes and superheroes and stuff flying and cosmic stuff and all that. It's a very good comic book. I really liked it. It's what I really loved about this comic book is that every character is a character. It's very easy to say that racist, bad, and all that. No, what American Carnage does, and that's why I also think of American History X as I was reading that, is that even the worst people are people, and they're presented as people, and you have rationales why they do what they do, you have twists about them, you have their characters inform their motives and vice versa, and even the worst people are kind of sympathetic in a way, and even the good guys can pass as unsympathetic and dickish. And that's really well done. It's something you need to read in a comic book like that, in a noir comic book. There should be some intricacy to everything. Even if you can, especially if you have panels like that, that they seem a bit out of there, and you really need that because you are reminded that yes, they're people, but they're also evil people, and that's a real horror of people like the villains of the story, is that they're not cackling maniacs who kick kitty cats and laugh. No, they're ordinary people, and sometimes their motives are very mundane, and that's the horror of it, really. I really love the pacing. Every issue of this comic book, and this is issue 1, feels like it's an episode of a TV show. Only you have taken out all the excess part, all those filler scenes with people talking that are there to fill the airtime with cheap shots, and instead you just condense it to about 100 panels per issue. The plot, you add the necessary dialogue to make the characters feel real and make the story progress, and you put them there, and it's always there. I'd say that 8 out of the 9 issues are very well paced, and that's quite a feat, especially in contemporary comics, where sometimes writers would go and pad out a storyline to fill in a graphic novel when it can be finished within 2 issues, and that's something that really puts me off. But then again, that's my opinion. It's very well paced, and I think it's because of Edward Hill being his scriptwriter, so he knows how to convey everything to the required length and to the medium. And of course, the artwork really helps. The artwork is amazing. I really like it. It's not my favorite style, but it really works for comic books like that. I said 8 of 9 issues were well paced because there's another gripe I had with this comic book, and that's about the ending. I felt that the ending comes a bit abruptly. Every plot thread is getting resolved by the end of this graphic novel, and the ending is really powerful. However, I get the feeling that this series was cancelled a bit earlier than expected, so there was a lot of wrapping up within the final issue that was not supposed to happen within 1 issue, and I don't know, I kind of felt it was a bit rushed, but nothing too out there. Actually, I thought the finale was very emotional, very strong, very powerful, very dramatic. It really fit the story, and as a whole, I'll close this one over here. I have to show the cover so you can recognize it. It's a very highly recommended comic book. I really enjoyed reading it. It met my expectations, and I hope if you're into modern crime comics, more character-driven comics, more more social and political stuff that's a bit intricate, I think you'll like it. Really liked it. It's a recommend from me. If you've read it, then please you can leave a comment below and say how do you like it. If you liked it, if you were disappointed by it, I'll be glad to hear your opinions. So that's it from me. You can expect some more graphic novel reviews on the next days. See you with another video. Thank you for watching.